There are a couple of stories, though, that I wanted to get into before them. Both of them having to deal with Republicans. So the first one, which was the one that kind of gave me like, oh, a pause, is there is a new poll out conducted by Yougov and The Economist. So two pretty reputable folks that are doing a poll. And this poll is asking about conversion therapy. Now, conversion therapy is a discredited practice. It is not recommended. Any medical association that licenses folks will say, please do not practice conversion therapy because it's based off of the wrong idea that you can change someone's sexual orientation, that you can change someone's gender identity. And what ends up happening for kids, particularly who are forced to go through conversion therapy, is that they're being told that their parents want them to change, that God wants them to change. But as they're going along in the therapy, those outcomes don't happen because you can't change someone's sexuality or gender identity.
Right.
So what ends up happening is that you create an anxiety disorder with the patient. You create a depression disorder with the patient. You can create, in worst cases, the more extreme cases, suicidal ideation. And there are way too many documented cases where a patient has taken their life, both kids and adults. Well, the Supreme Court last week was like, hey, what's wrong with this? Like, absolutely, this is a free speech issue. This isn't a medical issue.
Right.
So, and there are people who are submitting bad data to the Alliance Defending Freedom. Just found this out. They were submitting as part of their amicus briefs, and their data to the court gave them bad data, wrong data. They lied to the Supreme Court on this issue of conversion therapy. But the justices, they're all for Christian nationalism at this point. And they're basically saying that therapy isn't about medical data. It isn't about medical practices. It's about free speech. And this Christian therapist in Colorado because it's talk therapy, has the free speech to talk about conversion therapy and to practice conversion therapy on her children patients. And there are 23, 24, 25 states in the United States that ban this as a practice because the data very clearly over multiple decades shows that you cannot change someone's sexuality or gender identity. So there's that. Here comes this poll by Yougov and The Economist. 59% of Americans support conversion therapy bans, according to this poll. The survey was conducted October 10th through the 13th, and it specifically asked U.S. adults about conversion therapy, so changing a person's sexual orientation from gay to straight. And only 20% of respondents said they oppose conversion therapy bans, right? So majorities of Republicans, 60%, Democrats 59%, Independents 57%, all supported the bans. Interesting there. I know this is statistically like, the difference of 1%, but technically 1% more of Republicans, 1% more Republicans, the Democrats supported banning conversion therapy, and 3% more than Independents. So Republicans in this poll, again, one poll, so, we got to put that out there, supported it more than any other political party in there.
It frustrates me that we keep using the word conversion therapy because that's sort of a clinical term. But if we were doing what the Republicans do, we would be calling this child torture because that's what it is, a mental torture of children. And if we would talk about it in that way, what it actually is. In fact, there was a study done by the Trevor Project just recently. At that time, there were 19 states that allowed child torture to be done. And in each case, the percent of kids going through that torture had an increased risk or were having suicidal ideation as a result of it. So the assumption is that now that it's in something like 26 states, that it's the same, that the data would continue in the same way. So I'm going to call it child torture so that nobody can forget. We're not talking about a clinical thing. We're talking about a form of child abuse.
Now, there is one part of this poll that really depressed me. When asked, Democrats 75%, independents 55% were much more likely to say that they don't believe conversion therapy can actually change someone's sexual orientation. Only 45% of Republicans said that. So that's weird that the majority of Republicans, Democrats, and independents are saying, ban conversion therapy, but only 45% of Republicans said, well, that it doesn't work. And only 75% of Democrats said that it doesn't work. And only 55% of independents said that it doesn't work. Now, I worked in LGBTQ health equity. I am a queer person who, if I would have come out as a kid, I can guarantee you that my parents would have done something along these lines to put me into something around conversion therapy. And the harm of this cannot be understated. And the fact that a Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, can justify allowing conversion therapy by saying, well, if something goes wrong, you can just have a malpractice lawsuit. Well, we know something's going to go wrong. And how does a 12-year-old do that? How does a 16-year-old sue a therapist?
Right.
You can't do it.
I think Amy's known to be a dimwit, so that actually that she would make that go ahead and do the harm and then we'll just have a lawsuit. That kind of proves her reputation because it's terrible. It doesn't have the intellectual chops to be in the position she's in. Good Lord. And clearly no empathy and no humanity. So I don't know. Is that what we want in the Supreme Court? And we got a lot of it.
Now, interestingly, also in this poll, asked if gay people should attempt to change their sexual orientation. Okay. Only 17% of respondents said that they should change their sexual orientation.
Right.
And now I'm sitting there and going, why would you even ask that question? To even allow the idea that we would give people a say in whether or not they can change their sexual orientation boggles my mind.
Right. Who cares?
Like, you don't get to have a say in that. No, so why are we even asking you in a poll what you think about that? But, I'm gonna sit with the positives that 60% of Republicans supported banning conversion therapy. I'm gonna take that win and know that the Supreme Court is about to strike them all down, and that we are going to have kids who are going to be, to your point, that are going to be tortured. We are literally going to be manufacturing depression disorders, anxiety disorders, suicidal ideation on these kids.
And if there are suicides, then that is on the soul of Amy Coney Barrett and this terrible human being in Colorado. Read about her. I don't think she even has any kids. This is a real dyed-in-the-wool lunatic.
Well, what scares me about that also is that
she's amazing.
How will the parents respond to that? Because there were parents who didn't vaccinate their kids in Texas, and the kids died.
Right.
And the parents' response was, well, that must be what God wanted.
That's what God
I'm not joking. AP News was reporting that. You can go and look that up.
50% of parents should not be parents.
You can go and look that up.
Trust me.
All right. We are going to fit in a break here, and we're going to be talking about some young Republicans when we come back. But before we go on our break, I want to talk about our travel partner, Travel Marquette. I am going to be in Marquette this weekend. It is the Fresh Coast Film Festival, and the world sucks right now, so I am so happy that I can get in a car and go up to Marquette this weekend and just take a time out to be in nature and to buy some good books and to eat some good food and to refill my cup, as it were, which I have been doing every year for the past 10 years. And if that is something that you want to do, you can reach out to me on Blue Sky or on YouTube, and I will give you recommendations of where to go and where to eat and where to buy books. So if you want to get your adventure started, go to travelmarquette.com. That's travelmarquette.com. You're listening to The Gailey Show. We'll be right back.